was a little, I felt a little bit better with what I was seeing on defense, but then we lost Delvin Breaux, so I don't know how that's going to be moving forward. Overall, it was a good time. It was a good time until the end.
Okay, gotcha.
For me.
All right, hey, and welcome to the show, NFL Huddles. Frank Jones, what's happening, Frank? Hadn't heard your voice in a long time.
What's going on, Big Kyle?
How you feeling, man?
How y'all making out?
Good. Now, Frank, you were in the Superdome. And
I was there, baby.
You were there, and it looked good up until the end. You said to Professor, the fans coming out were pretty disgruntled. What were some of the comments you heard?
Typical the way the Saints will break your heart and find a way to lose a game they should have won, and fans were really, really disappointed. Obviously, frustration kicked in right at the last touchdown by Oakland, and obviously the 2-point conversion. And you really can't fault the kicker for missing a 61-yard field goal. You can look back over the course of the second half and say, why did they have to burn those 3 timeouts so soon? And that was the difference between maybe having a few extra seconds to get down a little bit closer. But I think the fans were disappointed. Me being the diehard Saints fan, bleeding black and gold, I was disappointed. But I have to say, the game was exciting. The energy in the Superdome was electric. And hats off to the Oakland Raiders fans. They were fantastic. I mean, they cheered their team, and when they were down, they didn't give up. When we were up, they were supportive. And it was almost like a mini black hole in the end zone in the plaza level of the Superdome, because that's where we were actually sitting. And they came in full gear. They had a parade from Padres and Rampart into the dome with police escort and second line band, and they really came to New Orleans, enjoyed the city, got an opportunity to cheer for their team. And, disappointing for the Saints fans, but I must say it's entertainment, and I was definitely entertained for 60 minutes.
Well, those Raiders fans always travel well. Saints fans travel well as well, but those guys in the black hole support their team. All right, guys, look, I mean, all in all, the Saints did, in my opinion, far beyond what I ever thought they were going to do. I'll be honest with you. I really didn't think we were going to put up as many points as we did, but we also left a lot of points off the board. And when you look at what happened that first drive, we had the ball. Drew Brees got sacked because he held the ball too long, and I was proud of Drew for acknowledging that. But the one thing that kind of concerned me, and it might be just a technique thing with Will Lutz, the kicker, most of his kicks trail off to the left, if you guys hadn't noticed that. Look back on at least 4 of the kicks as well as the extra points, they were trailing to the left. And my thing, Professor, and I was telling you about this during the week, I was wondering why the special teams coach didn't kind of tweak that through or right before he went into trying to kick that 61-yarder.
Well, that goes to my point that I alluded to earlier. You cannot bring somebody in the week before a game, and you had 2 kickers you had, one from last year and this year in training camp, and that goes with personnel decision where he has not had enough time to work with the coach. And that also goes with someone upstairs was not on their job watching his kicks, because he also had one that was blocked and tipped, and it just so happened on that short one it barely went through. And that goes with not having enough time to know your players that's on the unit with special teams. That also goes into coaching and someone not watching, because all of that, these are all intangibles. And you always hear me say this on this show, referring back to Jimmy the Greek. Intangibles play a huge role in you winning or losing. It's not something you can physically measure as you can measure a player with their attributes, but those intangibles are coming back to haunt the Saints, and they've haunted the Saints for the last couple of years. And this is an example where intangibly they missed it, because someone should have corrected that after the first 2 conversion points, and even after his first kick, to catch this like, hey, your balls are, your kicks are going to the left, so you need to either angle differently or, kick a certain direction and hook, and we know your footballs are going to hook back in. So that's something I'm sure they'll probably be working on this week in terms of things, because the gentleman definitely has a huge foot, but unfortunately, it just didn't work out this week.
Yeah. And not only that, man, that was a lot of pressure. 61-yarder, rookie, first game. Go win the game. Now you got to win the game for it. But, hey, that's why you get paid, and that's why we play the games as well.
You know what, Kyle, who was the MVP of that game? Was Janikowski. That's the difference in a veteran kicker and the All-Pro. They got the 15-yard penalty, and I really thought the Saints was going to have to start that drive at least between the 40 and 35. That dude kicked that ball in the air 75 yards, and Marcus Murphy caught the ball at the 5. That was the MVP of that game, because he kicked that ball, and the Saints started at their own 20-something. And that was a huge kick by Janikowski at 38.
Well, the all-pro kicker, the old man, he still has that strong leg, and that's why he's been kicking as long as he has been kicking for the Oakland Raiders, as well as being in the NFL. Guys, Drew Brees had a fantastic day. Besides that fumble, he had a 131 rating at quarterback. His QBR was 78.6, but he had 423 yards in the air. Remy, when you were watching Drew, and just what do you have to say? Because a lot of people were kind of unsure without having Marcus Colston back there, how this young kid Michael Thomas was going to perform. We know what we had in a little bit in Snead and Cooks, but how did you evaluate Drew's performance as well as the passing game's performance?
Well, it was said on this show last week that this was one of the better receiving cores we've had in a while, and I believe that going into this game. My concern was whether or not Drew Brees would get enough protection to get the ball to them. Mm-hmm. And, but he was able to do it. Okay, but I'm more concerned with the flip side of that. How much do we have in rushing? See, because we didn't have a very good rushing game. And that lack of balance, in my opinion, is a major contributor of the L we suffered. Yeah, our quarterback put up great numbers, wonderful. But where are our wins? Is that really that as impressive to me if those numbers are put up in a losing effort, which is what it was. So as great as it looks on paper, a W looks a lot better with 250 yards and more yards rushing.
Right. The Saints were able to muster 88 yards in rushing. Mark Ingram had 58 of those yards, and he also averaged 4.8 yards per carry, which wasn't bad, but one of those carries was 17 yards. I saw they kept running behind Pete, and he did a pretty good job. Evans, we welcome him back. You can see just bringing him back on the line and stabilizing, have a little bit of stability on that line, show very much in this game, familiarity, being able to understand the nuances of that line, and being in New Orleans such a long time really helped to stabilize these guys. If we keep this line healthy, I think we have a pretty good line. But yes, we must rush the ball better, because on the flip side, Oakland had 167 yards. We could say 75 of those yards came off Richard run, but still 167 yards on the ground doesn't bode well for a win in my book any day. When you look at everything and you you kind of look at how our team was performing. We felt good. We were 14 points up at one time. We were putting things in the air. We were having explosive plays, but it came down to the maturity level on the defensive side of the football. Can our defense be able to handle, especially we saw one X factor, and I think one of the most important people in our defensive core left the field with a broken fibula, and that really sunk the ship after that, in my opinion, because they keyed on that young man crawling. You saw P.J. Williams getting lost from time to time that second half as well. So, Deuce, how you doing? Deuce from the Who Dat Confessional, he's in with us on the studio as well, man. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm good, brother. Just tuning in to hear what y'all talking about.
Yeah, well, hey, we talking, giving a little recap. But, Deuce, how did you feel? What was happening there? Was it just me, or were they really picking on the young rookie cornerback in Crawley?
Oh, I think there's no doubt about that. And if you follow several analytics sites like Pro Football Focus, there is a group called the Crawfish Boiler who does it for just the New Orleans Saints. He scored pretty bad all across the board. And it's a skill position, no matter whether it's on offense or defense. If you find a weakness, you have to exploit it. So from an offensive standpoint, the Raiders really had no choice. I mean, they were able to win that matchup almost every go. So, I mean, they would be silly, not to exploit that almost.
Yeah, definitely. My concern also, and it goes back to personnel moves, and we're going to talk a little bit more in depth the second half of the show about these personnel moves, and it's coming back to bite us in the butt. I can't say if Payton and Loomis, even at 85%, wouldn't help us out, but to at least have a veteran presence somewhere in the cornerback core is, you see how much is necessary to have that at this particular time. Anyone like Frank, how do you feel? Do you think these young guys are going to mature enough going against Odell Beckham and Victor Cruz and these guys coming up on Sunday?
Well, I think they're going to continue to be a target, and any offensive coordinator game planning against the Saints are going to pick on the secondary. You're going to have to see a different scheme now where you're going to have safeties over the top to compensate for some of the inexperience out on the edges. That's going to make the Saints vulnerable for additional rushing yards or, teams being able to pound it up the middle because those safeties are now going to have to protect those corners. I think as the year progresses, they will get better. They are rookies. They will learn the nuances of playing the position against NFL caliber wide receivers. I do expect Eli and the Giants wide receivers to have a big game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. And you have to remember also the cornerback, the secondary position goes hand-in-hand with the pass rush. I don't care if you have two or three, all-pro cornerbacks out there. They need the help from that front four to put pressure on the quarterback, to make him have to make quicker decisions, which allows them to not have to cover for 3 and 4 seconds. I was, again, amazed at the game at times when Carr would stand back there 3, 4, 5 seconds with no one around him, and any quarterback will pick a secondary apart when you have that much time. So, they're going to have to find a way to manufacture a pass rush. Again, that's meaning bringing 5 and 6 people, again, putting the cornerbacks at risk. But hopefully over the course of the season, they're young. I think they have a lot of talent. They have a lot of promise. But it's going to be a little painful at first.
A little painful. It's going to be a lot painful for Saints fans to keep on seeing these track meets, especially, let's say our offense, Remy, doesn't produce. What's going to happen here, man?
We'll keep losing.
Keep losing, yeah.
That's about it.
Point taken there. All right, guys. Any last tidbits about this game? 2-point conversion, guys. Is it me, or why would you leave the rookie isolated against Crabtree.